Alright, good morning, goddammit. Piss and Vinegar Day 82. Delts and Biceps, and everything's going pretty fucking swell still. Overhead press, once again, increased like 3 reps today, so fucking the strength's going up, the size is going up. I did introduce creatine back into my dietary routine about 2.5, 3 weeks ago, so that might be part of it. It definitely gives you a strength boost, creatine, anywhere between 10 to 20%. So, and I'm a pretty hyper responder to that shit. It makes me very vascular, but it also does make me retain a bit more water in my face, a bit more bloated. But yeah, I mean, it partially could be creatine, not just the calorie intake. But either way, the strength has gone up, and it has been for a while now, even before the creatine. So very good. Yeah, 34 today, 34 kilos, or I think 75 pounds for Americans for 12. So up to the next weight. Yeah, and on the incline press, same thing. Like huge fucking strength gains. Gonna have to buy new dumbbells. It's gonna cost me about 2 or 3K to go from 40 kilos to 60 kilos. But first world problems, a good problem to have. Strong people problems, and yeah. So everything's good today. I was pretty focused. I'd say a focused level would have been about, let's say, I'm going to start rating my workouts at focus so that I can hold myself accountable. Let's say my workout was on a scale of 10, about 7.8. I was pretty well focused, but there's still more I could have done. I was focused enough to make sure I wore gloves before holding on these really heavy dumbbells with really fucking having a stroke. These dumbbells I have very brutal knurling. And on Monday, my chest day on Tuesday, my incline presses suffered because it was so heavy. These dumbbells are so heavy at 40 kilos, and the knurling's so fucking brutal that it was cutting into my hands. Like, they were seriously hurting. And I couldn't focus on my set as much because of that. So focusing in your workout can be something as simple as making sure that you wear gloves on brutally heavy, fucking sharp as shit dumbbells. But it's a lot of other things too. And overall, I was just a lot more focused today, so that was good. And yeah, and then the next thing was that someone asked, what was the new thumbnail about? I have a new thumbnail from my videos, and they said it looked familiar. They didn't know what it was. It's based off Pantera's Vulgar Display of Powers album. Pantera, probably the greatest metal band of all time. Black Sabbath's pretty good too, because they're the grandfather of metal, obviously. But overall, it doesn't get any better than Pantera. They were the single greatest. They embodied metal in so many ways. Dimebag Darrell was easily the greatest metal guitarist. Phil Anselmo, his vocal range was incredibly underrated. He had a very wide vocal range before he got on heroin. Then it kind of just turned into a V8 motor. But Pantera, man, if you've never listened to them before, or you don't know who they are, look them up. Start light, because some of their heaviest shit might freak you out if you're not into metal, but some of the best music to listen to when you're trying to lift weights or just anything that requires intensity. It could be fucking sex, it could be anything. Anytime you want to get really intense, Pantera is there to help you out. It's my go-to PR music. Yeah, man, Pantera is such a great band. I'd give my left testicle to see them live. Unfortunately, Dimebag Darrell, the guitarist, got murdered by some fucking retard. I can't remember, was he like a Marine or something? Some Marine came back from the war, was shell-shocked, shot him on stage in front of his brother. Just the fucking biggest piece of shit. One of the greatest guitarists of all time, taken away way too early. So they never got back together. Huge shame. They're doing a reunion now with Zakk Wylde, who's a great guitarist in his own right. He's no Dimebag Darrell, but he's pretty good. They still have Phil and they still have Rex, but the Darrell brothers are dead, unfortunately. Dimebag and Vinny on the drums are both dead, but yeah, man, they were such a fucking tight band. So look them up. Look up a great fucking Pantera live show. Is they go to Korea, and Phil Ansama, the lead singer, was just this fucking psycho motherfucker he was just like, he would jump into the crowd and box people sometimes because he was just so gacked out on heroin and shit. His lower back was all fucked up because he would go so crazy on stage. He literally he started taking heroin because he had so much lower back pain from being so just explosive on stage, basically. And they go to Korea, and he looks like Rasputin, like this evil Russian dude from the early 1900s. He looks like Rasputin. The video quality just makes it look like someone snuck a fucking video camera into hell, and there was a concert in hell. And it's just dirty, and it's red, and Phil's got hair all over his face, and he's saying all this crazy shit because the crowd are Korean, and they have no idea what he's saying, and he's fucking off his head on heroin, telling these little Korean people in the audience to smoke heroin and like smoke dope, and he was screaming like crazy fucked up shit like white power, and every time he would say all these horrific things, the crowd, unbeknownst to them, they had no idea what he was saying. They would just go, hell yeah, like, woo, yeah, like, smoke heroin. So different times back then. Metal's great. Metal's still great. If you're a metalhead, you'll understand that metal is still good, but it's lost some of its grit. It's lost some of its... there's definitely no solos anymore. For you guys listening that aren't into metal, this is probably the fucking most boring thing ever, but basically... metal doesn't have that. They don't have any great guitarists anymore. You don't have, the Dimebag Darrells. You don't have you have Kirk Hamlet, but not the old Kirk Hamlet. You don't have the Tornado of Souls fucking solo from Megadeth. I forgot the name of the guy, the redhead from Megadeth. I'm fucking blanking, but metal ain't what it used to be. I like 90s and 80s and early 2000s metal. Anyway, basically, rant for today is Pantera is the best metal band of all time. And you should listen to them if you work out. They're great for to working out. A new variation I'm doing today is, this is the same variation as usual in the isolation curl, but today I'm supinating really heavily through the arms. So rather than having my arms facing at sort of a 45-degree angle or like towards my other leg, I have my arm pointing directly outwards, and rather than having a arm that's kind of on a straight isn't like, rather than having a slightly pronated arm or a neutral arm, I'm having it totally supinated to get my inner head trained. So I'm doing these to alternate between arms because I have imbalances in my left and right bicep, but also I'm doing these now to try and isolate my inner head, because we do, reverse curls, hammer curls, etc. to try and hit your brachioradialis, but we don't do as much to try and hit our inner head, and it's, equally as important, if not more. The front double bicep is like the quintessential bicep pose, and on me it sucks. I mean, it's leverages, it's insertions, it's body fat percentage, and generally just it isn't my pose. But to improve it, I need to train the inner head more, and this is how I'm going to go about doing it. So that's my new way of training my inner head, is for supinating really hard through my pinky, rotating through the pinky, in other words, to hit my inner head on these concentration curls. So that's a new development. I'm always trying to tweak my training to make it more and more efficient, and at this point I've got it pretty much down pat, but there's still little things that I can tweak here and then that might add those little 1%s that really calculate up to very large percentages over time. So that's the new thing I'm doing today. These felt really good. My inner head was screaming, and I used to do it this way a long time ago. I don't know why I haven't been doing them ever since. This is one of those little tweaks that just really help. And I was watching Dorian Yates' Blood and Guts the other day, and this is one of his little tidbits, was he used to supinate really hard to hit his inner head. So little tidbit from him, or many tidbits from him on my training. But you can learn things from bodybuilders you don't agree with on everything else. They might have a little thing that really makes sense for you. And then today I also realized with my reverse curls, these are just better than the fucking hammer curls. These are better than my I do my hammer curls unilateral, so one arm at a time, and I do them with a dumbbell concentration style, and that feels fine, but I feel like it doesn't really hit the brachioradialis and the brachialis. For me, it more just hits the brachialis. This hits the whole kind of elbow to forearm attachment area. It hits the upper forearms or extensors, the brachioradialis, and the brachialis, which is the bicep area. So I'm just going to start doing these, and they save time because it's bilateral rather than unilateral. And the thing with the unilateral movement is my brachyradialis and brachialis, I have no imbalance there anyway, unlike the rest of my body. So there's no real point. Fucking having a stroke. There's no real point doing them that way. I'm just going to save time and do these. They feel better. They're easy to set up. So yeah, and they kind of look. They're one of my angles. I look really good when I do these. This is one of my good angles. Everyone has their good angles. Some people have more than others. I don't have many. But when I see myself doing these, I'm like, ooh, I look pretty fucking juicy there. And then you'll change angle to like front on, and it's like, what? Where did all the striations and developments go? I don't know if you guys experience that too. I think it's more of a natural lifter thing. You know, roiders don't get that because they get so big and fucking vascular and defined everywhere. But that's the natty problem, is like, oh, that angle sucks for me. Let me ignore that angle. I try not to do that because I try to be authentic, but there are some angles where it's like, don't fucking look at me. And this is a perfect example. This front double bicep on me doesn't look that great, but from the side, or like side on, my biceps look way more defined. And that's a body fat percentage, that's an insertion thing. And it's also probably just a hypercritical thing. I'm very hypercritical, but yeah, you gotta get past that and don't worry about the shitty angles. Don't let the shitty angles define you, but also don't make the good angles define you either, because you'll think you're a lot bigger than you really are. Just get like a kind of amalgamation of the two, and you'll know you're really progressing when your shitty angles start to look good. There are certain angles that I used to look at myself and go, what the fuck? And just be mortified at how unaesthetic and how small I looked and how fucking just generally shitty it looked, that are starting to get far better now. And that's when you know you're starting to get to starting to get to the tail end of the natty stage, or one of the good ways of figuring out. I mean, there are better ways of figuring out how close you are to your natty limit, but one of them is, am I looking good from the angles that used to look like shit? I hope this makes sense. For me, a lot of it is my chest. My chest sucks, and I don't think I'll ever really have great chest angles. Another consideration today, actually, I just remembered, was when you do your rotator cuff work, don't take them to absolute balls-to-the-wall failure. It's a small muscle. You don't want to injure it, because if you injure your rotator cuffs, you can't do fuck all with your arms or shoulders. And because it's so small, it can be easily injured. And it runs through so many different problematic areas, you know, like the supraspinatus, infraspinatus, all these different muscles, teres minor, major, etc. Although it's more infraspinatus and supraspinatus that work these specific movement of internal and external rotation. They run through such kind of tight areas that nerves, ligaments, tendons and stuff can get impinged, or mostly just nerves can get impinged. If this muscle gets inflamed or slightly injured, or just generally gets a bit inflamed from training, it can fuck you up for weeks, or days on end, and you won't be able to train shoulders, etc. So don't do absolute grind out fucking reps on your rotator cuffs. Keep a rep in reserve, or half a rep in reserve. Don't just, if it's going to be a 3 or 4 or 5 second grind, don't do it. It's not worth the potential slight extra gains. And then the last consideration is, because tomorrow is accessory day, and tomorrow I do my traps, my nucleus overload series that I'm doing every single day, where I train my traps and my pronator every single day. I don't do traps the day before I do them on high intensity. So tomorrow I'm doing high intensity 1 set to failure work on my traps. I don't do my 100 high rep nucleus overload shrugs today. And same thing goes tomorrow. I won't do my pronation tomorrow, because I'll be doing pronation the next day on my arm wrestling day. So if you're doing nucleus overload, the muscle you're training with the nucleus overload, give it a day off the day before you hit it with high intensity. So if you're training chest on a Monday, Sunday, don't do your 100 push-ups a day or whatever it is that you do to get your pecs increase their nuclei. So that's another consideration. Anyway, see you guys tomorrow for more Piss and Vinegar. Bye-bye.